I'm Miranda, 35, a single mother raising Lily and Owen, ages 10 and 8. For 15 years, my mother Catherine has rented the same beach house for our extended family vacation. Except my children and I are never invited. Not enough room, she always claims, while somehow fitting my sister Pamela's family of 6. My successful real estate investment career? Invisible to them. Maybe if you had a real job, Pamela once smirked. I never argued. I just worked harder. Last month, everything changed when I bought something that left my entire family speechless. Before I dive into this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments, and while you're there, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about family dynamics and unexpected comebacks. Trust me, you'll want to stick around to hear what I said when my sister called crying about being left out. Family dynamics are complicated, but mine sometimes feel like they were scripted for a soap opera. My mother Catherine, now 62, has always made her preferences clear. From childhood birthday parties to college decisions, my sister Pamela received the lion's share of attention, praise, and support. I was expected to figure things out on my own, to be the responsible one. Pamela, 38, married Thomas right after college. He's a successful orthopedic surgeon, and they have 4 beautiful children: Emily, 14, Jacob, 12, Zoe, 10, and Tyler, 7. They live in a 5-bedroom house in an exclusive neighborhood, complete with a pool and home theater. Their Christmas cards look like they're straight out of a magazine. After my father died from a sudden heart attack 16 years ago, my mother started the beach house tradition as a way to keep the family connected. Every summer, she would rent the same sprawling house on Sunset Beach for 2 weeks. The first year, I was invited along with my then-husband Richard. After our divorce 12 years ago, when Lily was just a toddler and I was pregnant with Owen, the invitations became sporadic, then stopped altogether. We need to prioritize the children, my mother would say, somehow forgetting that I had children too. Meanwhile, I had to rebuild my life from scratch. Richard moved across the country with his new girlfriend and barely sent child support. I started as a real estate agent, working nights and weekends while juggling childcare. I took every class I could on property investment, saved every penny, and slowly began building my portfolio. One small property led to another, then another. But to my family, I was just Miranda who sells houses. 3 summers ago, I received the familiar June phone call from my mother. Miranda, darling, I've been thinking about the beach house arrangements, she began, her voice carrying that fake apologetic tone I'd grown to recognize. Yes, Mom, I replied, already knowing what was coming. Well, with Pamela's family, there's just not enough room this year. Thomas's parents will be joining for the first week, and you know how the children need their space. I took a deep breath. What if the kids shared rooms? Lily could stay with Emily and Zoe, and Owen with Jacob and Tyler. I could take the sofa in the den. There was a pause. Oh, honey, that wouldn't work. Emily is a teenager now. She needs her privacy. And the boys are at such different ages. Besides, the den is where Thomas's father likes to watch his sports programs. I understand, I said, though I didn't. The beach house had 5 bedrooms and a converted attic space. There was room. There just wasn't room for us. The hardest part was always telling my children. Lily, who was 7 that summer, had made a seashell collection box at school, carefully labeled Beach Treasures. Owen, just 5, had been practicing holding his breath in the bathtub for when we go swimming in the ocean. Maybe next year, I told them, forcing a smile as I suggested alternatives. We'll have our own special summer right here. And we did try. I enrolled them in day camps when I had to work. We visited every public swimming pool within 30 miles. On weekends, I would take them on day trips to nearby lakes or amusement parks. I worked extra hours to afford special treats and experiences for them, trying to create memories that would compete with the idyllic beach vacations their cousins described in vivid detail when we saw them at holiday gatherings. Did you ride the waves this year? Lily would ask her cousin Emily. Every day, Emily would reply. Grandma bought us all boogie boards. Mine was pink. Each summer, I watched my children's faces fall when they realized another year had passed without an invitation to the beach house. Each summer, I promised myself things would be different next year, but they never were. Last summer brought another family gathering at my mother's house. It was the traditional pre-beach trip dinner, where Catherine would distribute new beach towels to Pamela's children and discuss the menu planning for their 2-week stay. I sat quietly at the dining table, helping Tyler cut his chicken while Pamela scrolled through her phone, occasionally showing my mother photos of swimsuits she was considering packing. "Miranda, could you pass the salt?" Thomas asked, barely looking up from his plate. As I reached across the table, Pamela glanced up. "Oh, what are you and the kids doing this summer, Miranda? Any special plans?" The question sounded innocent enough, but the slight smirk that followed told me it wasn't. "We're exploring local options," I replied evenly. "There's a new water park opening next month that the kids are excited about." "That sounds nice," Pamela said, drawing out the last word. "Though it's not quite the same as feeling the ocean breeze, is it? Maybe if you had a real job, you could afford your own vacation instead of waiting for handouts." The table fell silent. My mother cleared her throat but said nothing to defend me. Thomas chuckled softly, and I felt heat rise to my cheeks. Worst of all, I could see Lily at the kids' table, her head down, pretending she hadn't heard. "The water park will be fun," I said simply, and changed the subject to ask about Jacob's baseball team. Later that night, back in our modest 3-bedroom ranch house, Lily approached me while I was folding laundry in the living room. "Mom, why don't we ever go to the beach house with Grandma and everyone?" she asked, her voice small. I patted the space next to me on the couch, and she climbed up, leaning against my side. "Well, sweetheart, sometimes families make different plans for different people. Grandma's beach house is pretty full with Aunt Pamela's family. But Emily said there's a big room upstairs with 4 beds that nobody uses except for their suitcases." I swallowed hard. "Is that so? And Aunt Pamela said you can't afford a vacation. Is that true? Are we poor, Mom?" The question stabbed at my heart. I turned to face my daughter, taking her small hands in mine. "No, honey, we're not poor. We have everything we need. I have a good job that lets me be home when you get back from school. We have our house, food on the table, and each other. That makes us very rich in the ways that matter." Owen appeared in the doorway, clutching his favorite stuffed dinosaur. "Can we have our own adventure?" he asked. "Just us? Without Grandma and Aunt Pamela?" "That's a wonderful idea," I said, opening my arms so he could join our couch huddle. "What kind of adventure should we plan?" As the children excitedly discussed possibilities ranging from camping in the backyard to visiting Disney World, I made a silent promise to myself. This pattern had gone on long enough. Something needed to change, and since I couldn't count on my mother or sister to be the ones to change it, it would have to be me. That night, after the children were asleep, I sat at my small home office desk and opened my laptop. Instead of catching up on client emails, I began researching coastal property investments. I had been careful with my real estate business, building slowly but steadily. I had a solid reputation and a growing portfolio of rental properties. What if I took a bigger risk? Over the next few weeks, I stayed up late every night, creating a business plan. I reached out to potential investors and partners I had met through my work. I studied market trends in vacation destinations within driving distance. And I found a promising lead, a small, underperforming resort property about 2 hours from the very beach where my mother rented her summer house. The property had potential, but it would require a significant investment. I would need to liquidate some of my existing assets and take out a larger loan than I'd ever considered before. The numbers made me dizzy, but they also worked. On paper, at least, this could be more than just an emotional response to years of exclusion. It could be a smart business move. With trembling hands, I made the first call to my bank to discuss financing options. As I hung up the phone, I felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. What had started as a late-night fantasy was beginning to take shape as a real possibility. The next year was the most challenging and transformative of my career. By day, I continued managing my existing properties and serving my real estate clients. By night, I immersed myself in the world of commercial real estate and resort management. I closed 3 major deals that spring, including a small apartment complex that netted me enough commission to pay off my car and set aside a significant sum toward my growing resort fund. My reputation in the local real estate community was solidifying. Twice I was asked to speak at regional investment seminars, and a local business magazine included me in their Women to Watch in Business feature. None of this impressed my family, who still introduced me as simply Miranda. She sells houses at gatherings. In April, I met Barbara Thornton, a successful developer who had transformed several failing hotels into boutique destinations. After my presentation at a real estate investment forum, she approached me with a business card and an invitation to coffee. "You've got good instincts," she told me over espresso the following week. "But you're playing it too safe. What's your big vision?" I hesitated, then pulled out my folder of research on the coastal resort property. Barbara studied my numbers, asking pointed questions about my financing plan, renovation budget, and marketing strategy. After an hour of grilling me, she sat back and smiled. "You might be onto something here," she said. "If you're serious about this, I'd like to mentor you through the process." What followed were 60 and 70-hour work weeks as I balanced my existing business, the resort acquisition process, and single motherhood. I hired a reliable after-school sitter for the kids and scheduled my client meetings during school hours whenever possible. I became an expert at multitasking, reviewing property inspection reports while watching Owen's soccer games and negotiating with contractors by phone during Lily's dance recital intermissions. The kids noticed the change. One night, Lily found me asleep at the kitchen table, my face pressed against a spreadsheet. "Mom," she said, gently shaking my shoulder, "you should go to bed." I lifted my head, disoriented. "What time is it?" "Almost midnight. You said you were just checking one email after dinner, but that was 4 hours ago." I rubbed my eyes.
"I'm sorry, sweetheart."
"This project at work is really important." "More important than us?" she asked, her voice small. The question jolted me fully awake. "No, never more important than you and Owen. You two are the reason I'm working so hard." I pulled her into a hug. "I promise it will all make sense soon." November brought our family Thanksgiving at my mother's house. Pamela and Thomas arrived in a new luxury SUV, their children spilling out with tablets and gaming devices in hand. My mother fussed over them immediately, exclaiming over how much they'd grown and how smart they looked. "Miranda, you're late," was her greeting to me when we arrived precisely at the time stated on the invitation. Dinner was the usual performance. My mother served Pamela first, then Thomas, then each of their children in age order, before finally offering food to my children and me. The conversation revolved around Pamela's recent kitchen renovation and Thomas's promotion at the hospital. After dinner, as we moved to the living room for dessert, my mother brought out her photo album from the summer beach trip. "Look at these beautiful sunset pictures," she cooed, showing them to the gathered relatives. "And here's Emily on her new paddleboard. Thomas bought one for each of the children." "Can I see, Grandma?" Owen asked, trying to peek at the album. "In a minute, dear," she replied, continuing to turn pages. "Oh, and here's the seafood feast we had for Thomas's birthday. The restaurant brought it right to the beach house." Such service. I watched my children's faces as they absorbed, once again, all the experiences they had missed. Jacob, Pamela's middle son, unknowingly twisted the knife. "Lily, you should have seen the dolphins. They swam right up to where we were building sandcastles. Mom said it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing." Lily nodded politely, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. Later, as Thomas monopolized the conversation with details about the boat he had rented for a day during their beach stay, I found myself reflecting on my childhood. I had always been the responsible one, working part-time jobs since high school to pay for my own clothes and school activities. Pamela had received a car for her 16th birthday. I had taken the bus to my after-school job at the mall to save for mine. My mother had criticized my choice of college. Why not somewhere more prestigious? My career path, real estate? Is that stable enough? And later, my choice of husband. Richard seems nice, but does he have ambition? When the marriage fell apart, there was no sympathy, only a knowing, "I told you so" look and occasional reminders that Pamela and Thomas were celebrating another anniversary. As I drove home that night, with Lily and Owen quiet in the back seat, I realized that the pattern of emotional neglect that had shaped my childhood was now affecting my children. They were experiencing the same sense of being less than, the same exclusion, the same subtle message that they weren't quite as important as their cousins. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. The resort acquisition wasn't just about proving my worth anymore. It was about breaking a generational pattern and showing my children that they deserved better. The coastal property I had been researching was called Seaside Haven Resort, though it had seen better days. Built in the 1980s as a mid-range family destination, it had cycled through several owners who had neglected necessary updates. The current owner, a retirement-age man named Gerald Wilson, had inherited it from his brother and had little interest in the hospitality business. When I first visited the property in January, it was easy to see why occupancy rates had dropped. The 24 units were clean but dated, with faded floral bedspreads and laminate furniture that had gone out of style decades ago. The small restaurant was closed for the season, though a peek through the windows revealed dusty tables and an ancient cash register. But the location was unbeatable. Situated on 3 acres with 200 feet of private beachfront, the resort had panoramic ocean views and a protected cove perfect for swimming. A wooden boardwalk led from the main building to the beach, passing a neglected but salvageable pool area. Most importantly, it was just a 10-minute drive from the upscale beach house my mother rented each summer. I spent 2 weeks conducting due diligence, hiring inspectors to check the building's structures, reviewing financial records, and assessing renovation costs. The news wasn't all good. The roof needed replacing, the electrical system required updating, and the septic system was nearing the end of its life. But the bones were solid, and the zoning allowed for expansion. With Barbara's guidance, I assembled a team of potential investors and prepared a comprehensive presentation outlining my vision for transforming the tired resort into a boutique destination for families and couples seeking a personalized beach experience. The current asking price is $2 million. I explained to the group gathered in Barbara's conference room. Based on our inspections, we're estimating another $1.5 million for renovations and updates. Our market analysis shows we could triple the current revenue within 3 years with proper management and targeted marketing. The questions were tough but fair. How would we handle staffing in a seasonal location? What was our contingency plan for weather events? How would we differentiate from larger chain hotels in the area? I had done my homework and had answers ready. By the end of the meeting, I had secured commitments for 40% of the needed capital. With my own investment and a commercial loan, we could move forward. The negotiation with Gerald took less time than expected. He accepted our offer of $1.85 million, eager to be free of what he called my brother's folly. On a cold March morning, I sat at a closing table signing more paperwork than I had for all my previous property acquisitions combined. "Congratulations," said the attorney, sliding the final document across for my signature. "You're now the proud owner of Seaside Haven Resort." As I drove home from the closing, I was overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. I had just made the biggest financial commitment of my life. If this failed, I could lose everything I had worked for. And yet, I felt a sense of power I had never experienced before. For the first time, I had taken a risk on my own terms, without seeking anyone's approval. I hadn't told my family about the resort. Part of me wanted to call my mother immediately and finally force her to acknowledge my success. A larger part wanted to wait and reveal it at the perfect moment, when the renovation was complete and the resort was something I could be proud of. But the strongest impulse was to tell my children. They had watched me work tirelessly for months, had sacrificed weekend outings and evening story times, and deserved to know why. That night, I picked up Lily and Owen from their after-school program with a mysterious smile. "I have a surprise," I told them. "We're going on a little road trip this weekend." "Where to?" Lily asked, instantly suspicious of my cheerful tone. "It's a secret, but I promise it will be worth the drive." The Christmas gathering at my mother's house that year followed the usual script. Catherine announced the dates for next summer's beach house rental, passing out little save-the-date cards to Pamela's family with cartoon seashells on them. "I've already put down the deposit," she said proudly. "Thomas, I made sure to book the weeks that work with your hospital schedule." I noticed no cards were prepared for my children or me. "These will be going out to the rest of the family next week," my mother continued, "but I wanted to give them to you in person." As if on cue, Thomas made a show of retrieving packages from their car. "And speaking of gifts," he announced, "we brought a little something for everyone." Pamela's children received expensive electronic gadgets. My mother received a designer scarf that I knew cost more than my monthly car payment. My children each received generic gift cards to a chain store, with Thomas explaining, "We weren't sure what you liked." My gift was a scented candle, the kind sold in discount bins near checkout counters. "Thank you," I said politely, wondering if they knew or cared that I was allergic to artificial fragrances. Later, as the adults had coffee and the children played in the basement, Lily approached my mother. "Grandma, will we get to come to the beach house next summer?" she asked directly, catching everyone off guard. My mother patted her head, absently. "Oh, well, we'll have to see about space, dear. Maybe next year." It was the same answer she gave every year. I caught Pamela's smug look and Thomas's dismissive shrug. They knew, as did I, that maybe next year meant no. That night, I held on to the secret knowledge of my resort purchase like a shield against their indifference. In 6 months, I would have a very different answer to my daughter's question. The renovation of Seaside Haven Resort became the focus of our lives that winter and spring. I hired a local contractor with experience in hospitality projects and a designer who specialized in coastal aesthetics. Together, we created a plan to transform the dated property into a welcoming retreat that balanced luxury with family-friendly comfort. In February, during a school holiday, I finally brought Lily and Owen to see the property. I had prepared them with stories about a special project, but hadn't revealed the full scope of what I had purchased. "Is this it?" Lily asked as we pulled into the cracked asphalt parking lot. The main building's faded sign hung slightly crooked, and peeling paint was visible even from a distance. "It doesn't look very special," Owen added, his face pressed against the car window. "It doesn't look special yet," I corrected him, turning off the engine. "But it will. Come on, let me show you something." I led them past the reception area with its outdated wood paneling and dusty fake plants, through a side door, and onto the wooden boardwalk that led to the beach. The February wind whipped at our jackets, but the view was spectacular. Waves crashed against the shore, and seagulls circled overhead against a brilliant blue sky. "This," I said, gesturing to the expanse of ocean before us, "is what makes this place special. And guess what? It belongs to us now." "The ocean?" Owen asked, his eyes wide. I laughed.
No, silly.
"Not the whole ocean, but this resort, with this private beach access. I bought it. We own it." Lily's mouth dropped open. "You bought a hotel?" "A resort," I corrected her. "And yes, I did. This is what I've been working on all these months. We're going to fix it up and make it beautiful. And then next summer, we'll spend the whole season right here." "Right next to Grandma's beach house?" Owen asked. 10 minutes away, I confirmed. "Close enough to visit if we want to, but we'll have our own place, on our own beach." The children were silent for a moment, taking it all in. Then Lily turned to me, her expression serious. "Can we help decide what it looks like? The rooms and stuff?" "Absolutely," I assured her. "In fact, there's one suite I was hoping you two would help me design specifically. It's going to be called the Family Suite, and it will be the best room in the whole resort." Their excitement was immediate and contagious. For the next hour, we walked the property as I pointed out where improvements would be made. Owen wanted a bigger pool with a slide. Lily suggested a library corner in the lobby with books for guests to borrow. They both agreed the restaurant needed an ice cream bar. I took notes of their ideas, many of which were surprisingly practical. By the time we headed home, they were fully invested in the project, already making plans for which friends they would invite to visit during the summer. The renovation process was not without challenges. A routine inspection revealed asbestos in the ceiling tiles of the restaurant, requiring specialized removal that ate into our contingency budget. A late March storm damaged part of the boardwalk, setting our exterior work back by weeks. And finding qualified staff willing to commit to a property that wasn't yet operational proved harder than expected. But for every setback, there were moments of progress that kept me motivated. The day the new resort sign was installed, with its elegant driftwood-inspired logo. The afternoon I walked through the first completely renovated guest room, with its custom-built furniture and subtle coastal color palette. The morning the landscapers finished planting native grasses and flowers along the winding paths. Barbara visited regularly, offering advice and connecting me with industry contacts. She brought potential corporate clients to tour the property, even in its unfinished state, helping me secure advance bookings for business retreats in the fall and winter months. "You're doing it," she told me during one visit, as we stood on the newly rebuilt deck overlooking the ocean. "And not just the physical renovation. You're reinventing yourself as a business owner, not just an agent or investor." Her words struck a chord. I had been so focused on the practical aspects of the project that I hadn't fully acknowledged my own transformation. I was finding my voice after years of staying quiet. I was setting boundaries with contractors and vendors when work didn't meet my standards. I was making decisions without seeking approval or validation from anyone else. Most importantly, I was showing my children what resilience looked like in action. They saw me problem solve when deliveries were delayed or budgets needed adjusting. They watched me stand firm when the building inspector tried to rush through his review. They witnessed me navigate the complex world of business loans and insurance policies with growing confidence. As spring progressed, word about the resort renovation spread through the local business community. The Regional Business Journal ran a feature about the project, highlighting my background and vision for the property. Former colleagues and clients reached out to congratulate me, some expressing interest in booking future stays. I hadn't sought publicity, preferring to focus on completing the work before making grand announcements. But when the article was published, complete with renderings of the planned final design, my phone began ringing with inquiries from potential guests. One of those calls came from my cousin Nathan, my mother's nephew. "Miranda? I just saw the article about your resort project." "Is that really you?" I confirmed that it was, giving him a brief overview of the renovation timeline. "That's incredible," he said, genuine admiration in his voice. "Does Aunt Catherine know about this?" "Not yet," I admitted. "I've been waiting for the right time to tell the family." There was a pause. "Well, I think it's fantastic. Pamela sent out an email about the annual beach trip, but honestly, your place looks a lot nicer than the house they usually rent. When do you open for reservations?" That conversation planted a seed in my mind. Nathan wasn't the only extended family member who might prefer a free stay at a newly renovated resort to the crowded arrangements at my mother's rental house. Perhaps it was time to consider how I wanted to handle the inevitable family reaction when my project became public knowledge. As April turned to May, and the resort transformation neared completion, I realized I no longer cared about proving anything to my mother or sister. The resort wasn't about them anymore. It was about creating something meaningful for my children and myself. It was about building a future based on my own efforts and vision, not on seeking approval that would likely never come. With that realization came a surprising sense of freedom. For the first time in my adult life, I felt completely at peace with my choices, regardless of what my family might think of them. With the resort's soft opening scheduled for mid-June, I began planning how to announce its completion to my extended family. After careful consideration, I decided to host a family reunion weekend in early July when Seaside Haven would be fully operational, but before the peak tourist season began. I designed elegant invitations on thick cream cardstock, featuring a watercolor painting of the resort's beachfront at sunset. Each invitation was personalized with the family member's name and included specific details about the all-expenses-paid weekend I was offering. Transportation, accommodation in our premium suites, meals at the restaurant, and access to all resort activities would be completely free for my guests. I sent invitations to all my aunts, uncles, and cousins on both sides of the family. I included my father's brother Robert and his wife Susan, who had always been kind to me but who rarely attended my mother's beach gatherings because of an old disagreement. I invited my mother's sister Margaret and her husband John, who lived across the country and usually claimed the trip was too expensive. I sent invitations to all my cousins, including those with young children, promising child-friendly accommodations and activities. I did not send invitations to my mother or to Pamela's family. The decision wasn't made lightly. I discussed it with Lily and Owen, explaining that this first family gathering at our resort would be special because it included people who hadn't been able to participate in the beach house vacations before. But what about Grandma? Owen asked. Won't she be sad if we don't invite her? Grandma has her own beach plans, I explained gently. Remember how she already put down a deposit for her house? She'll be nearby with Aunt Pamela's family, just like every summer. Will she be mad when she finds out about our resort? Lily asked, always perceptive about family dynamics. She might be surprised, I acknowledged. And sometimes when grown-ups are surprised, they act upset at first. But this is our special place, and we get to decide when we're ready to share it. I prepared them for possible family drama, emphasizing that no matter what happened with the adults, their cousins weren't responsible for their parents' behavior. The responses to my invitations came quickly and were overwhelmingly positive. My Uncle Robert called me directly, his voice thick with emotion. Miranda, I can't believe what you've accomplished, he said. Your father would have been so proud of you. Aunt Margaret sent a handwritten note along with her RSVP. We've missed so many family gatherings because of distance and cost. Thank you for making it possible for us to reconnect with everyone. John and I are looking forward to finally meeting your children. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years reached out with enthusiastic acceptances and questions about the resort amenities. Several mentioned that they had often felt excluded from the beach house gatherings due to space limitations or conflicts with my mother. Is Catherine hosting her usual beach week? My cousin Nicole asked when she called to confirm her attendance. Will she be joining us at the resort? Mom has her traditional rental house, I explained, keeping my tone neutral. This is a separate event. Interesting, Nicole replied. I could hear the curiosity in her voice, but she didn't press further. As the RSVPs accumulated, I realized that nearly 30 family members had accepted my invitation. Many expressed surprise and admiration at what I had accomplished, having heard little about my career progress over the years. It took less than a week for word to reach my mother and Pamela. The call came on a Tuesday evening as I was reviewing the final delivery schedule for the resort's restaurant equipment. Miranda, it's Pamela. My sister's voice came through the speaker, tight with barely controlled anger. What's this I hear about you buying a resort and hosting some kind of family reunion? I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm. Hello, Pamela. Yes, I've purchased and renovated a property called Seaside Haven Resort. We're hosting a gathering for extended family in early July. And you didn't think to invite your own mother and sister? Emily just heard from Nicole's daughter that they're all going to stay at some fancy place you bought. Do you have any idea how that made her feel? The kids are crying, Miranda. They think you hate them. The emotional manipulation was so transparent, it almost made me laugh. Pamela had never cared about my children's feelings when they were excluded year after year. I'm sorry the children are upset, I said evenly. This particular weekend is for family members who haven't had the opportunity to join the beach house vacations in the past. As Mom has already arranged her usual rental, I assumed you would be continuing with those plans. That's the most ridiculous excuse I've ever heard, Pamela snapped. You're deliberately excluding us out of spite. Mom is devastated. I doubted that. My mother was more likely angry than hurt, but Pamela had always been her messenger when difficult conversations were needed. The resort will be open all summer, I said. You're welcome to book a stay as regular guests at another time. Book a stay? You expect us to pay to visit your little motel when we've been inviting you to the beach house for years. I almost corrected her on both points. Seaside Haven was hardly a little motel, and they had specifically not been inviting me to the beach house. But I bit my tongue. Listen carefully, Pamela, I said instead, my voice firm but controlled. For 15 years, I've watched you and Mom pack up for beach vacations while telling me and my children there wasn't enough room for us. I've listened to your comments about my career, my parenting, and my life choices. I've smiled and stayed quiet when you belittled me in front of my children. Not anymore. There was silence on the other end of the line. I built this resort through hard work and smart investments. I continued. It's a business I'm proud of, and it's also a fresh start for me and my children. The family members I've invited are people who have shown us kindness and inclusion, even from a distance. When you're ready to do the same, we can talk about future gatherings. So that's it. Pamela's voice had shifted from angry to tearful. You're just cutting us out of your life? After everything Mom has done for you? She's not getting any younger, Miranda. Do you really want the kids to grow up not knowing their grandmother and cousins? It was the same emotional leverage she had always used to keep me in line. This time it didn't work. My children see their grandmother at Christmas and Thanksgiving, and they're welcome to continue those visits. As for their cousins, they would love to build closer relationships with them when it's not predicated on us being treated as second-class family members. Pamela was openly crying now. You can't do this. It's not fair to the children. They've been looking forward to seeing you at the beach all year. Have they? I asked quietly. Because my children have been looking forward to it for 15 years, Pamela. And every year, they've been disappointed. So forgive me if I find it hard to believe your children have been eagerly anticipating seeing cousins they barely acknowledge at family gatherings. What do you want me to say? She demanded. That we were wrong. Fine, we were wrong. We should have made more effort to include you. Is that what you need to hear? What I need, I replied steadily, is for you to understand that this isn't about getting an apology or admission of guilt. This is about me finally prioritizing my children's happiness and my own well-being. For once, I'm not asking for your approval or inclusion. I'm creating my own space where we feel valued and welcome. There was a long silence. When Pamela spoke again, her voice was cold. Mom was right about you. You've always been selfish, always had to make everything about you. Well, congratulations on your little revenge project. I hope it was worth destroying the family over. Before I could respond, she hung up. I sat for a moment, letting the accusation settle. Was I being selfish? Was this whole project really about revenge? I thought about the joy on my children's faces when they helped design the family suite. I remembered the pride I felt watching the construction progress each week. I considered the genuine excitement from extended family members who had felt as excluded as we had over the years. No, this wasn't about revenge. It was about growth, about creating new traditions, about showing my children that they deserved to be prioritized. And if Pamela and my mother couldn't see that, it was their loss, not mine. The family reunion weekend at Seaside Haven Resort exceeded all my expectations. As guests arrived on Friday afternoon, the newly trained staff welcomed them with signature cocktails for the adults and special mocktails for the children. The weather cooperated beautifully, with clear skies and a gentle ocean breeze that carried the scent of salt water and the jasmine we had planted along the walkways. Lily and Owen appointed themselves unofficial tour guides, proudly showing their cousins and second cousins around their resort. They knew every corner of the property, from the best spot to watch dolphins in the morning to the secret path through the dunes that led to a hidden tide pool. My mom designed this whole place. I overheard Lily telling her cousin Nicole's daughter Madison. She worked really hard, and now it's the prettiest resort on the whole beach. The family suite, which the children had helped design, became the unofficial gathering spot for the younger generation. With its bunk room for the kids, separate bedroom for parents, and expansive living area opening onto a private deck, it was perfect for family movie nights and board game tournaments. Uncle Robert, who had been something of a surrogate father to me after my dad died, raised a toast at our first dinner in the resort's restaurant. To Miranda, he said, his glass held high, who reminds us that success is the best revenge, but family is the best reward. The weekend was filled with activities, from guided nature walks along the shore to a bonfire with s'mores on Saturday night. I had arranged for a professional photographer to capture family groups, providing everyone with framed photos as mementos. Most meaningful to me were the quiet conversations with relatives I had rarely seen over the years. Aunt Margaret shared stories about my father's childhood that I had never heard. Cousins who had built successful careers in other cities offered business connections and advice for expanding the resort concept. Even distant relatives who had been on the periphery of family gatherings expressed genuine interest in my journey and my children's lives. On Sunday morning, as I was having coffee on the main deck, the resort manager approached me. "Ms. Wallace, there's a woman at reception insisting on speaking with you. She says she's your mother. She doesn't have a reservation, and she seems upset." I had been expecting this moment, though I thought it might come later in the summer, when my mother's beach house rental began. Taking a deep breath, I thanked him and made my way to the lobby. Catherine stood at the reception desk, her posture rigid and her expression a mixture of anger and disbelief. She was dressed for church, in a floral dress and pearls, clearly having come directly from her Sunday service. "Miranda," she said when she saw me, her voice carrying across the open space. "What is the meaning of this spectacle?" I gestured toward a small seating area away from the front desk. "Let's talk privately, Mom." Reluctantly, she followed me to the arranged chairs, perching on the edge of one, as if afraid to get comfortable. "How could you do this?" she demanded once we were seated. "Buying a property practically next door to our beach house and inviting the entire family except your own mother and sister? Do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" I looked at her carefully, seeing beyond the carefully applied makeup and designer outfit to the signs of age I hadn't noticed before. There were new lines around her eyes, and her hands, clutching her purse, showed prominent veins and age spots. "That wasn't my intention," I said truthfully. "This resort is a business investment and a new chapter for me and my children." The family gathering this weekend includes people who haven't been able to participate in the beach house vacations for various reasons. "Don't pretend this isn't about punishing me," she snapped. "Robert called to tell me what a wonderful time everyone is having at your resort. He mentioned how proud your father would be of your independence and business acumen." Her voice turned bitter. "As if I hadn't been the one encouraging your independence all these years." I almost laughed at the revisionist history. Is that what you call it? Encouraging independence? Because from my perspective, it looked a lot like being excluded and dismissed. "I always treated you and Pamela exactly the same," she insisted. "No, Mom, you didn't. And we both know it. But that's not why I'm here today, running this resort. I'm here because I saw an opportunity and took it. I'm here because I wanted to create something special for my children. I'm here because I finally stopped waiting for your approval and decided to live my life on my own terms." She was silent for a moment, her eyes scanning the lobby with its tasteful coastal decor and the large windows showcasing the ocean view. "It's nice," she admitted reluctantly. "I had no idea you were capable of something like this. Why didn't you tell me what you were planning? Would you have been supportive?" I asked. "Or would you have told me it was too risky, too ambitious, too much for a single mother to take on?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. "I'd like to see the rest of it," she said instead. "Since I'm here." I gave her the abbreviated tour, showing her the restaurant, pool area, and one of the standard guest rooms. She made occasional comments about the decor or asked practical questions about staffing and maintenance. It was the longest civil conversation we had had in years. As we walked along the boardwalk toward the beach, she finally addressed the elephant in the room. "Pamela is very upset, you know. The children were counting on seeing Lily and Owen this summer." "They're welcome to visit," I said. "But as guests, not as people doing us a favor by allowing us into their vacation." "That's not fair, Miranda. We never meant to make you feel that way." I stopped walking and turned to face her. "Intention doesn't change impact, Mom. Whether you meant to or not, that's exactly how you made us feel. Year after year." She looked away, watching a pair of seagulls circling over the water. "I suppose we could visit for a day," she said finally, "during our beach house stay, to let the cousins play together." It wasn't an apology, but it was something. A small acknowledgement that things needed to change. "I think that would be nice," I replied. "The kids would enjoy that." As I walked her back to the parking lot, she made one final attempt to regain the upper hand. You know, your independence has always been your strongest quality. I raised you to stand on your own 2 feet, and look at what you've accomplished because of it. In a way, this resort is a testament to my parenting. I could have argued, could have pointed out the absurdity of her taking credit for the very resilience I had developed despite, not because of her parenting. But what would be the point? Goodbye, Mom, I said simply. Enjoy your beach vacation. That evening, as the extended family gathered for a farewell dinner before departing the next morning, I found myself on the beach, watching the sunset. Lily and Owen were playing in the shallow waves with their cousins, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. Uncle Robert joined me, his weathered face reflecting the golden light. You've created something special here, he said, gesturing not just to the resort behind us, but to the scene before us. And I don't just mean the buildings and the business. I nodded, understanding what he meant. Beyond the physical transformation of the property, I had created a new kind of family connection, one built on mutual respect and genuine affection rather than obligation or tradition. I saw Catherine leaving earlier, he continued. How did that go? About as well as could be expected, I replied. She's not ready to admit any wrongdoing, but she's willing to arrange a day visit during their beach stay. Robert chuckled. Baby steps. That's more flexibility than I've seen from my sister in decades. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey that had begun with hurt and exclusion had led to something far more valuable than revenge or validation. It had led to self-discovery, to finding my voice, to creating a legacy for my children based on strength rather than victimhood. Lily ran up from the water's edge, her hair wet and sandy, her smile radiant.
Mom.
Can we do this every summer? Can all the cousins come back next year too? I pulled her into a hug, sand and all. If that's what you want, sweetie. This place is ours, and we get to decide who shares it with us. And that, I realized, was the most important lesson of all. Not that success is the best revenge, but that creating your own space, literally and figuratively, is the truest form of freedom. 1 year later, the dynamics of our family had shifted in ways I never could have predicted. Seaside Haven Resort had completed its first full season with nearly 90% occupancy, exceeding our financial projections. The family suite had been booked solid from June through August, often by relatives who had discovered the joy of beach vacations without the tension of my mother's orchestration. Pamela and I had established a cautious truce, mostly for the sake of the children. Her oldest daughter, Emily, had asked to work at the resort for 2 weeks in July, earning spending money by helping with children's activities. The experience of having a job and earning her own money had been transformative for her, opening her eyes to a world beyond her parents' financial umbrella. My mother had visited 3 times during her beach house stay, each visit a little longer than the last. She would never fully acknowledge the years of favoritism and exclusion, but she had begun to treat my children with more attention and interest, perhaps seeing them through new eyes now that others valued our company. Most importantly, I had found balance. The resort ran smoothly under the management team I had assembled, allowing me to focus on future investments while still having time for Lily and Owen. We had created our own traditions, our own special memories, our own sense of what family meant. As I watched the children racing along the shoreline, building sandcastles and collecting shells, I thought about how a space that had once been denied to us had led us to create something even better. Not just a resort, but a new way of being family on our own terms. And that was worth more than any vacation I could have been invited to. What would you have said if you were in my position? Have you ever had to create your own space after being excluded? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about family dynamics and personal growth. And don't forget to share this with someone who might need a reminder that sometimes the best response to exclusion is creating something even better on your own terms. Thank you for joining me today, and remember, you deserve a place where you feel valued and welcome.